Friends, welcome to this session. It's an afternoon fireside chat, not a night fireside chat, but we can be just as cozy, and it's open to all of you at any point of time as well. I'm happy to have Damini with me here today. Damini is a senior fellow at the Vidhi Center, and before she went into Vidhi, she studied at Najis, Calcutta, and in Pennsylvania. After which she has worked for Shadul Amarchand Mangaldas, which she has a little commercial background, which I'm glad for, because I find theory doesn't match with commercial sometimes, but she has a great advantage. And today we're going to talk about legislature and judiciary. Until now, we've always talked about the executive. The government doesn't do this, the government doesn't do that. Unko ye karna hai, university ko ye karna hai. We never think about किसने law बनाया पहले और क्या करना है आगे. That law has to be done. And why should we set in a particular way? And of course, the judiciary, the most, in my thoughts, my initial thoughts on this was that judiciary was the most important organ. But it is not. It is the legislature, judiciary, and the executive, all three together, which makes our country the way it is. Yeah. So Arman, welcome here. We've only been flying around. Arman is the Executive Director of the NCPEDP. We do a lot of work on advocacy, and I think we're the premier organization on advocacy. Arman?
Yes.
Come, we'll move your chair out from here. One second.
Good. Don't worry.
Yeah, okay. And I was just mentioning that the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary are all very important. Arman has been doing a lot of work with the legislature now because we're looking at the polls, the manifestos. So we start with that, the manifesto part of it, because if I want to do something correct, I have to start and say I want to do it before I even become involved. Okay, so let's start with that. Arman, with you. Sorry, we're starting with you right away. And
Right. Thank you so much, Kanchan, for the introduction. Good afternoon. I would like to introduce myself again. Some of you already know me, but my name is Arman Ali. I'm the Executive Director of NCPEDP. And NCPEDP is a 30-year-old organization, the one and only organization in the country which is full-time into research-based. I'm advised not to use the word advocacy anymore. So I would say stakeholder engagement. So continuously, full time, we do is that engage with any ongoing discourse in the country, and we focus on inclusion of people with disability, whether it is employment, whether it is accessibility, education, health, elections, any ongoing discourse. And to Kanchan, to your question or point, I think disability is a political issue. If there's a problem or there are issues around disability inclusion, because there is an absolutely lack of political will. And because disabled people are an invisible minority in the world, and there is a majority in politics, which that's how the world works, because 80% of the world's population are non-disabled people, and they function like they're able to walk, see, hear, and so on. But the 20% of people who are not, so they remain an afterthought. And so everything that you see is designed around the so-called able-bodied people. And I think without political will and without people with disability not knowing what their rights are, and if they're not part of the discourse of development, I think we'll never get there. And that's how we thought, and all of you must be aware that India, there are more than 1 crore registered voters with disability in India. With the Election Commission of India, more than 1 crore. I think that's only 15 to 20% of the total eligible voters in the country, voters with disability, I mean. So and we figured at NCPEDP that when the political parties come up with a manifesto, they talk about women, they talk about other marginalized group, the Dalits and business and everything, but there's no discussion or there is nothing to do with people with disability. Even some elderly citizens are mentioned in manifesto that, we will, for example, Ayushman Bharat is now also, looking after 70 plus, people and irrespective of their income strata. And so we thought we should make our own manifesto. So we consulted the whole country and we came up with a manifesto, and that manifesto was then presented to the political parties. The current ruling government included 4 of our demands which was there, and other like the Congress did 5 and CPM did 9, and we engage with every elections, even in the Maharashtra elections that will happen, and now that the Delhi election is going to happen in February. We've been doing this continuously for the last 2 years, and we want to take it forward. Kanchan?
Damini? Yes. One second. Yeah. Damini, what do you feel about your research and what work you have worked on right now? What do you think about where should the will be coming from?
Sure. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. As Kanchan ma'am introduced me earlier, I'm Damini Ghosh, and I lead the Disability Inclusion and Access Practice Area at Vidhi. Just a little bit about Vidhi Center for Legal Policy. We are an independent think tank set up with the main mission of improving laws and thereby improving governance. We were set up in 2013, so relatively new, and we are essentially a bunch of lawyers. And as Kanchan ma'am said, we are involved in at the level of execution in our law firms, and when we are interpreting the law and arguing matters in court. But what's really happening at the stage of formation of the law? What is the thought process which is going on? Who has been consulted? What are the different points of view which have been taken into account? I think that is what sort of drove us into this particular side of law. So in terms of work, organizationally, Vidhi has been doing a bit of work here and there on disability over the years, but it's only in the last 3-4 years that we've sort of, made a very conscious effort towards looking at aspects through a disability lens. Sorry, am I audible? Okay, through a disability lens. Earlier it would be that, okay, we are looking at some aspect, okay, then now let's also look at disability. But now the idea is to set up a dedicated practice area which looks at disability in its entirety. And currently we are focusing on 2 main aspects. So the team has been set up, the practice area has been set up with the idea that how do we improve implementation of the law using law as a catalyst, and at the same time how are we shaping public narratives. And the reason for that has been that if you see, we have a very robust, detailed framework at the national level, right? And yet, no matter which lens you look at it from, whether it's education or access or health or early intervention, we see that the implementation doesn't really translate to ground level. So we felt at that point of time that it's not just enough to draft a law and let it be. What can we as lawyers do to deep dive into that and see if we can actually set out clear roadmaps, set out clear research with actionable targets, with identifying stakeholders, helping people navigate these complicated frameworks, and see if these steps can be actually encoded within law and policies, whether it's actually a legislation or a subordinate legislation. How do we actually do it in this to really start that, because that's the starting point for any sort of systemic change, and it's there for posterity till it's amended again. And simultaneously, what we felt with the disability work was that it's okay, it's great we've put this law, But at the same time, the stakeholders who are responsible for implementing, what is their awareness? What is their sense of understanding of their role and responsibility within that ecosystem? So which is why that's the second part of the mission which I talked about shaping public narratives, right? That how are we reaching out to decision makers and implementation agencies to really tell them that this is what the law says and this is what you need to also focus on, because as Arman talked about the fact that there is an invisibilization of it, right, of the issue. So how are we bringing that back? How are we sort of giving a legal push and enabling some sort of a mindset shift in implementation agencies and decision makers? So that was really a bit about the work that we've been doing in this space, Kanchan ma'am.
For those who are not lawyers or who don't know the space, I just like to explain. Initially, when we have a problem, okay, individuals have done this. So they have found, okay, they have a problem, how to sort it out. And when you want to sort it out, one of the places you may land up is at the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, that's the Union Legislature, or at the state level. So then, when you want to change that, you have two ways of doing it. One is to the first way you have to do is to get everybody out there who is a member of parliament or of the state legislature aware of the problem, get them to sympathize, get them to understand, to be a part of your team, and later on to exactly get into the wordings in where you deal with the law ministry of the either center or the state. But it takes time. The whole process takes time, and it's not, it's something that you will also evolve with while you want to change. So see what is available already. Don't say that nahi hai, India doesn't do it. Yes, India has a lot of good laws. We don't implement because we don't know. So Arman will tell you a lot more about implementation and the awareness that is there, and Arman, and how he is trying to sensitize or make aware the legislature of the country. Arman.
Yes. Damini has a better mic too. Yes. Yeah, the struggles of disabled people in our country continues to be only for survival. I mean, it is very sad to say that. The fact that I'm delayed to be part of this panel because the airline was refusing to give me my own wheelchair, which was in the hold. And despite following all the norms, and I also come with some connection in the country when I travel or wherever people know me and I have my ways through. Despite that, the people came to receive me in the aeroplane with a placard like, "Who is Arman?" And they said, "Yes, please come." But I said, "Where is my wheelchair?" They refused to give it to me because they said that due to security reasons we are not. So there's such acute lack of awareness. They don't want to listen to you. The moment you say that you are a person with disability, they think you need a wheelchair. Okay, like it's like you have a choice if you want to, and they say it's a humble request, please use our wheelchair. I said it doesn't make sense, right? So this is when you are paying for a service as a private sector, and still you don't get what you want. Disability continues to be looked at as a charity and a welfare issue. India is a welfare state, so it looks at disability as a welfare issue, so welfare is always a cost. But when you want to look at something as part of development, it becomes an investment. So disability's biggest struggle is that it is always an afterthought. And when you do welfare, it's only about giving 500 rupees or 1,000 rupees per month. In a state like Nagaland or Mizoram, it is 300 rupees per month for a person with disability. And there is no discourse around disability whenever you are planning something. For example, the Dharavi development going to happen. So when I was here a couple of months back, we asked this question that when this redevelopment happens, are we trying to put disability inclusion right from the blueprint of it or right from the drawing board? I don't think that there is any effort that is being made to educate politicians around disability, the bureaucracy. They think disability is a good to do, and I think whenever they see a person with disability, they will help. So recently, I was talking to a group of IS officers who were this Agbut Kadar, who are posted in Union Territories and Delhi NCR. And I said, this entire country is inaccessible, and you built a new parliament, even that is not accessible. The Supreme Court is not accessible. So how do you think that the next Prime Minister will not be on a wheelchair? How do you know that the next Chief Justice is not a blind person? How do you assume all this? And people are not able to go and represent, if you're denied something, if you are discriminated, you need to have access to justice. That justice system is not accessible to disabled people. So then one of the IS officers got very upset. How do you say things like that? I don't think any IS officer who you meet and tell them your problem, they will not help you. Everybody will help, be all like good. I said, how do I go and meet you? Is the public transport accessible? You will sit on the corner room on the first floor of your office building. Is it that accessible? So where do I catch you and tell you my problem? And then he figured out, okay, you also talked about the Prime Minister. And of course, India is a great country. I will be a Prime Minister in 20 years, I told him. I can be, you never know. And then everybody laughed and stuff like that. So, how you think about disability in a particular way, you don't look at the Constitution, you don't look at the law. What are the guiding principles? And the biggest problem of disability is the disabled people themselves. When you look at your disability as a qualification, when you look at your identity as something that you already, something ki sarkar ne bahut kuch kar rakha hai. क्या कर रखा है मतलब? When we talk of employment, I will just take 1 minute, Kanchan. How many of us actually know that in 4 category, one of the categories of adults with intellectual disability, Alokadi is here. There are 64,000 posts which is identified for that category. The number of posts that has been filled up in last 10 years is only 164. So that's a kind of backlog, and there is no discourse around this in anywhere you go. You don't know about disability and now that we started this trend of asking questions in the parliament about disability. When with something which you don't count, it doesn't count. It doesn't matter. So when vaccination started, we asked the Ministry of Health what was the number that you have in terms of vaccination of disabled people. No response. Multiple reminders, no response. We asked this question in 2001 in a monsoon session in the Parliament, Lok Sabha. The response came that 4,000 people has been vaccinated, which is not true. I think almost everyone was vaccinated, but disability is not a data point. We repeated the question again in the winter session. It came at 8,000 people, 8,000 something. So that's how disability is looked at, something that you don't monitor. So if you plan, this meeting here has been planned, how many people, you have an idea that we will have 100 participants coming and we'll keep 20 extra plates for people who want to come have lunch, chairs, everything is planned because of number. Where are the numbers of disabled people? Do you have any data on how many people with disability are in jail? How many people with disability have received paying tax? And so on and so forth. I mean, I'm not even getting about law and trying to get implementation done. What is there is such a strong legislation in our country, but we can't. And the tragedy is that we keep saying that disabled people live in the rural areas, but we never go to the rural areas. They never see the light of the day. 5% of the poverty alleviation schemes are supposed to be kept for disabled people. Where are they? What is the budget allocation? The budget allocation for DEPWD is 1,200 crores. That means less than 2 rupees per person. Even if you look at a 2 crore population of disabled people. So these questions need to be asked, and this is not something that you woke up today morning and we want all this. This is all guaranteed by the Constitution of this country. It is guaranteed by the law, but disability remains a good to do. On a day that you feel good, on your birthday, or somebody has died, or some anniversary, you want to visit a special school, give food, your old clothes which is out of fashion or it doesn't fit you, you want to give it to them, and that's about it. So that this mindsets need to change, and this can only change through the use of law, the right that you have, and it is in the nature of things, I say it for all the disabled people and their parents, it is in the nature of things that rights must be fought for. It never comes to you on a platter, and you have to make people realize who you are, you exist, and again, I'll pause here, Kanchan.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Arman. That was a very good answer. Thank you very much. Okay. See, we talked about laws being fought for. Yes, but laws, if you fight for them and don't follow up and don't keep checking and rechecking and monitoring, and in any change that we expect that it'll change forever. It doesn't change forever. It changes for a little time, and then the elastic comes back. The rubber band comes back. So I'm going to leave it to Damini to tell us how they've been monitoring and tell us about that, and then we'll come to the judiciary after. Just let's go into the law first, and then go to judiciary.
Okay. So I think just to address that part, I feel like when we are looking at the law, I mean, it's true. Like, you have to just sort of stay at it, and policy making in itself is a very long process. It can get exhausting. It can be a lot, right? But at least what we try to do at Vidhi is that the research can never be in isolation. Research is our core value. It's our core product, independent research work. And law can perhaps give the language, but that language is of no relevance unless we have consulted and spoken to multiple stakeholders repeatedly. The education report, which my colleagues talked about, it took them 18 months to come to that, to put it out there. So, and it took tremendous number of consultations to get it there, to give validity to what we are doing, to give context, to give relevance, to visibilize the issue. Otherwise, we are just writing, some ideal language can be put in without any purpose, right? So one is, to engage with stakeholders constantly, to build consensus, to visibilize the issue, and to then be able to use that momentum to push for reforms. And simultaneously, it's very important to engage with the government, and it is tough. And in my experience, what has always happened is, and Arman is right, on a good day somebody will be very, very happy to sort of help you out, but it's about patience and trying to find that one champion in the government. It's usually somebody with a lived experience, somebody who has a child with disability, who's willing to take it forward. So it's to really, sort of stay at it, to really to convert that research into some sort of a implementable directive, some sort of advisory, some sort of a regulation which can find place in the statute books, and that becomes the starting point for implementation. But we have to sort of stay at it, and that is where we see, our role coming in as a organization which is aimed at improving laws in India.
Thank you. I'd just like to add a couple of things. One, we had this experience of Kapil Sibal, and I'm giving you names and I can stand up to it. So we've gone for the copyright amendment. We wanted a copyright amendment some years ago, I'm talking about, okay? So हाँ, हम disabled लोगों के लिए बहुत करते हैं. हमारी family की trust है. हम लोग सबको खिलाते हैं. On, as Arman said, on a good day. So that was one of the things that we had. We also had Jaipal Reddy. And this is to your thing, that he was disabled. He was on a wheelchair. But if you asked him anything about disability, at that time, the man is no more. But at that time, he would not acknowledge. I'm wondering now, it's about 10 years since then, okay, whether today people are willing to accept disability. Shashi Tharoor did mention it in Parliament when he was, when he had met with an accident. So he did mention it. I wonder whether others, legislators, are willing to mention it at all today. And Arman is trying to do that, trying to educate them, trying to make them understand. And that's been a major role. Right from voting, that we are important, we need to go and vote. I think Arman will tell us about voting, and he'll tell us about the census now, because we have to be counted, and nothing for us without us. So we have to be there to be counted in. So now, Arman, tell us about voting and tell us about census. What is the work we're doing on that? Yes. Okay.
all the tough questions are coming to me, Kanchan. I think this is not fair. And also I see it's been recorded. And so I think voting, one, I must acknowledge Vidhi and Dhwani. When this started, she came to, we were course mate for a public policy thing, and that's the connection. And we worked closely on the inclusive education report, the first one you did on the, and I will just first tell about disability. So you talked about census. Census is kind of a head count, okay? The tragedy again about disability, that if you did a survey 20 years back about employment of disabled people or education of disabled people, and you're doing it now again, the results are going to be the same. So it has not worked. I mean, that's the tragedy. We laugh at it, but that's the tragedy of it. So one of the first report which will look at employment and education of people with disability in India was done by my predecessor, late Shri Javed Abidi, in 1996, Kanchan in 1995, I think so. Right? Top 100 companies in Bombay Stock Exchange had less than 1% of their employee as disabled people. So now BRSR report was released day before yesterday. It continues to be the same. So, but there's so much of noise around disability. And everybody says, let's do disability work, DEI. It's crazy. Like in the world disability, the whole world goes crazy. We all we don't know where to go, where not to go. But anyways, so again, I recently again on this account of this or Supreme Court order, in the order of November 8th, where the Supreme Court is saying that accessibility is a fundamental right for persons with disability. It's a prerequisite right to many other rights. So if you don't have accessibility, you cannot get education for that matter, employment, and so on. So I wrote to the Chief Election Commissioner or Commission for Election Commission of India. I said, you are doing fantastic, right? So people are able to go to vote. The polling booth has some accessibility. There are challenges still remain in the rural areas, but you've made a lot of headway. So I wrote to him that now, on account of this Supreme Court order, how are you ensuring that disabled people are also able to contest? How are you ensuring that the candidates who are campaigning, their campaigning mode is accessible for people with disability? How are disabled people getting to know who is my candidate in my constituency? Why should I vote him? The background. Are this information going to be available in an accessible format to them? And then I tell disabled people, stop going to polling booth and showing your finger that I voted. I think it's done. I think we have to stop doing it. You have to ask questions. And if you don't vote, don't complain. It's as simple as that. People who don't vote, that means you're not electing anybody. You cannot complain about the roads. You cannot complain about the price rise. You cannot complain that bijli nahi aa rahi hai. You don't have the law and order. It's as simple as that. And if you vote, you have the right to ask, I elected you. And there's no, this is a diverse country, right? So when you vote, you could be different religion, age group, color, caste, creed, everything is taken care of. And something like disability, which cuts across all sections of society, is always an afterthought. And it's because you think we don't have the numbers. So you all, if I may rejig your memory of the Maharashtra election results, how many candidates lost with less than 2,000 votes? If you look at Haryana results, how many people lost less than 2,500 votes? And these voters with disability in that particular constituency were higher than that number. So if somebody who consolidates disabled people's vote and their family member, today in elections, last 5 years, people lose 500 votes, 330, 60 votes also people have lost. But if you consolidate disabled people's vote, whoever has lost it, any party, that if we win, we will do X, Y, Z for disabled people, it is mentioned in a manifesto. I think then people with disability have to realize their power of voting, the value of their vote, that they can also elect a candidate, a government. That was the first thing I would like to say about voting. It's very important to be aware about it and get a little more political. Second point you wanted to say about census is going to happen. Hopefully this year. This was supposed to happen in 2021, and I think a lot of us, we have been in touch with the census from last. The census happened because NCPEDP initiated. My predecessor, Sri Javed Abidi, wrote to the Supreme Court. It became a PIL, and then disability was included after it was dropped for one census, and then it was included. And now, and that at that time, 2011 and the previous one, NCPEDP kind of worked very closely with the census RGI, the Registrar General of India, who was in charge of the census operations, to create awareness, train the master trainers, enumerators, and so on. I think again, it was supposed to be in 2021. We had delayed, and very interestingly, okay, if you look at the figures of 2011, it says 2.21 crore people with disability. From that time, the number of disability has gone to from 7 to 21 categories now. So 7 categories to 21 categories of disability. It means that the number is going to definitely increase. And this number is going to increase, I think the government is aware of that. And all of us have that responsibility to ensure that we get ourselves identified as disabled people. And it doesn't really have to have a certificate that, when the enumerator comes to your house, that you have to show your certificate. They will ask, the question number 9 in the census thing is going to be on disability. They will ask you, do you have any person with disability in your household? And you say yes, then they will ask you which one of the 21 category. If it is there in 21 category, you tick that up, and there is an option called any other. If you identify, for example, somebody may have a fracture in their left leg. And that moment of time, if you say yes, I have a disability, they have to count that you have a disability. And what happens when the numbers goes up? So if you figure out that people with locomotor disability are 3 crores, the deaf people are 7 crores, or if they, I feel that the whole world should become disabled. I really like it. So that's why the numbers I say is so at least there are 20 crore disabled people in India, the blood disorders and so on. And there are many groups who have rare disease, are yet trying to identify themselves as in the disability group. So I think anybody who feels that their condition, or somebody who's elderly, somebody who has arthritis, are not able to climb steps, they say, yes, you have a disability. I say, yes, I have a disability. So I think and then when you have that kind of a number coming up, then when the government plans that for education, which is a fundamental right in our country, it is the responsibilities on the state to ensure that all children up to the age of 14 and 18, when it comes to children with disability, free and compulsory education is to be provided. The responsibility is not on the parents, but the responsibility is on the state. And there has to be budgets, transport, health, infrastructure, buses, trains, aeroplane, everything that you design, you refer to this figure. So I think it's very, very, very critical. And census is one. I think anything else also that happens, like, how many people are actually taking metro, how many people are in, buying certain products, for example. It's all that data when you put into any system, they don't ask if you have a disability or not. It's largely left out. Unfortunately, the national NHFS, the National Health and Family Survey, which is the largest survey in India after the census, dropped disability. They also dropped anemia and thing. But when you drop such important data point from these kind of surveys, how are you planning on disabled people? You're planning on the basis on a good day when you climb 2 steps, meet the IAS officer and say, sir, हमको UDID card चाहिए. And he says कि आपको UDID card मिल जाएगा. And he goes home and says, बहुत बढ़िया काम किया मैंने आज.
Thank you, Arman. The reason I cut on census, and it was not a topic on my list of questions, was because of the numbers. We have when you are working with the legislature, the first thing when there's a person like an MP or MLA, आपके constituency में कितने लोग हैं is a very important thing. So if he wants to get elected or he wants to be popular, he needs to know, or we need to tell him that we are important in the constituency, and each of us here has a duty, whether you're a special educator, whether you're a parent, whether you run an NGO, whatever you do, even if you're not a person with disability, you're dealing with somebody, and a lot of us are going to become more disabled because of seniority, okay? So we're dealing with this issue, therefore, we need the numbers to make the difference for the legislature. Now once, yeah, okay. So once we go on from the legislature, we have the executive. उनको तो काम करना ही है, करते नहीं हैं, but वो दूसरी बात है. That's the government. We'll deal with that later on. Let's go to the judiciary, which has been doing a great amount of work for us. Judiciary is also of human beings. Please understand that. So you will get conflicting answers from somewhere, for different judgments from some other court. But however, Damini will tell us a lot more about how judiciary is useful. To be made more useful if we can help it. And let's talk about access to justice. Unless we have the way to get to the court, we're not getting justice.
Thank you so much for that question, Kanchan ma'am. So we've talked about the law, and the law on paper as it stands is a fairly progressive legislation. It ticks all the right boxes. But when we come to the judiciary, as law, when I see it as a lawyer, I feel that a tremendous progress has been made, right? We've seen a lot of judgments delivered in the recent past, whether it's on how persons with disabilities are portrayed in visual media, or about the floor requirements for accessibility which has come, or what kind of, or in relation to admission of persons with disabilities in government institutions, so on and so forth. We see a bunch of judgments, and that will continue. But the reality is that access to justice still continues to remain a pain point, right? So even with a very clear mandate that all persons with disabilities must have access to justice, this comes from the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, yet in reality that's not the case. And some of the reasons which we've realized during the course of our research, not just disability work but even otherwise in other areas of law, has been it can range from levels of legal literacy, that persons themselves may not be aware of their rights and what are the avenues to sort of set those rights into motion. Simultaneously, we also have a situation where there are, as Kanchan ma'am said, the judiciary is also made up of human beings. So what is the level of understanding of disability? And you add another layer when you're talking about intersectionality. What is the level of understanding of that nuance? What are in terms of the challenges faced by such persons? Do our judicial officers understand that? We are also talking about inaccessible physical spaces in terms of access to courtrooms. And it's not just about physical accessibility. Ma'am and I were talking earlier, how are we providing for virtual accessibility, right? Are people able to attend hearings virtually, right? So accessibility is not just that, it goes far beyond that. And what kind of facilities are we providing in court premises? Do we have sign language interpreters? Are all the documents screen reader friendly, right? So it can be a range of things. And of course, the fourth major issue which I feel is there is the weak enforcement of orders, right? So we give a judgment, but what's happening after that? Are we following up? Is it being implemented? Is there enough political will to push it through? We have situations where our state commissioners have given favorable orders, but it's been challenged saying, okay, but they're recommendatory in nature, so why should we follow it, right? So we don't have that kind of capacity. But in terms of where we can step in is, again, that, and this is something which we are now doing as an organization, is to really help, build awareness from a legal standpoint for persons with disabilities, or persons who are championing their cases before courts. We partnered up with the DPWD in Delhi to put together a compendium of important important judgments in terms of what are the rights of persons with disabilities, which in an easily digestible format. We are also talking to parents and caregivers of children with disabilities to help them understand processes of disability certification, how to navigate that complicated legal framework. We've and simultaneously what is also needed is sensitization of judicial officers. I talked about it earlier. We've seen this in Supreme Court judgments where we've seen cases where there are 3 layers of intersection. There's a person with disability who's a woman who may be from a lower caste. So is the judicial system sensitive to this? Is it really understanding the gravity of the situation? We are also talking about physical accessibility of courtrooms, right? Like Arman talked about the fact that how structures are designed keeping able-bodied men, when they are designed. But are we looking at, are we designing our court spaces, keeping users, keeping a very user-centric focus, which includes persons with disabilities, right? It's more of a universal design concept. And at the same time, once that accessibility threshold is met, are we sensitizing our judicial officers to understand what kind of reasonable accommodation can be provided? What does that individual need on a case-to-case basis? So to build capacity and resources for that. So ma'am, I think these would be some of the challenges and how we could perhaps step in and work towards that.
Thank you very much, Damini. I'd just like to clarify one thing, Damini. There were judicial officers, and whether they are judges or whether they're officers at whatever level, they have to be sensitized with to regard to persons with disability. Yes, I mean, as in how to treat me, but the next thing is also what are the judgments that have passed? You did mention that you have come out with a compendium. I've had the unfortunate honor of arguing a matter twice over, once in 2010, getting a favorable order, fabulous order from the Bombay High Court, and arguing the same thing in 2023. And the same facts, more or less, and everything similar, but fully argued again, the same opponents, the same officers fighting it from the government side. But I mean, you waste so much money and time, the time of the individual who comes to court, the time of the, the whole team who's researching, working on it, and the judge who has not read the past. And how would he know? Because there's so many judgments of the Bombay High Court before that. So honestly, it's not a great situation to sensitize, so you have to do more than only one compendium. And Arman, let us hear your words on... sorry, give her the mic. Thank you.
I very firmly believe that, I am only destined to do this disability rights work. And Damini talks about this access to, justice, Supreme Courts and courts. So I am in one of the committees, Accessibility Committee of Delhi High Court. And one day I was called for this meeting for the Delhi High Court. So I went with my car and they kept sending me from one gate to another gate. And this gate is not allowed. And so I reached the meeting day, the Honorable Justice was there. So I said, why are you making fun of me? You talk about access. As a committee member of an accessibility committee of the Honorable High Court is not able to come here. Imagine the plight of a disabled man coming from a village to fight a case in your court. आप तो अंग्रेजी बोल के ही भगा देगा उसको. So that's the reality of life. And the reality of life that we should call out every act of discrimination, no matter how big and small. You must call it out. There's so many women in the room, na? I know I have my nieces and thing. छेड़ते हैं ना लोग सड़क पे. You ignore it. ठीक है, छोड़ दो. क्या इनके मुंह में कौन लगेगा? हम सिखाते कि मुंह तोड़ के आना. And disabled people have to fight it back. And have to call it, नहीं ठीक है, पता नहीं मुझे उठा लीजिएगा. मैंने तो मेरे कोलीग को कर रखा है यहाँ पे मुस्कान को कि मुझे धक्का देके रैंप के कैसे चढ़ाना है उतारना है, because मेरा dignity बहुत important है. we have a project now in Maharashtra. So, right from, talking about capacity building. So, my colleague Muskan is here. And so in Maharashtra, we want to work with all the government stakeholders to build the capacity to understand law and better implementation. So, that's something we'll talk offline from here. We also run a legal aid helpline. Phone aate hai, pure India se phone aate hai. Nobody is talking about ki under the Rights of Persons with Disability Act, what are my rights. They are calling कि मुझे मेरे भाई ने मेरा प्रॉपर्टी ले लिया. हाँ मैं मेरे बिजनेस में उसने वो हो गया, मुझे नौकरी से निकाल दिया, मुझे नौकरी नहीं दे रहे हैं. So the problems of disabled people are not different from people in general. But when we talk of disabled people, we wear a different hat. वो चाइल्ड नहीं, स्पेशल चाइल्ड है ना, उसको पढ़ाना है तो स्पेशल एजुकेशन में ही भेजना है. And so I think for us to take, it's important to take a pause and realize for disabled people, I mean, when I say we take a pause, disabled people and the allies and the parents, they have to understand that we are people first. We are the hardcore criminals if you want to, and we are also Elon Musk when you want to. It's about the opportunities and exposure that you get. This welfareist approach, for NCPEDP कि मैं महाराष्ट्र में 5 वर्कशॉप कर दिया, मैं झारखंड में 4 वर्कशॉप कर दिया, तो हम पूरे इंडिया को बदल रहे हैं. वो सेम लोग ही आ रहे हैं पर 10 साल से. और तो मैं बोल रहा हूँ आपको ना, I know the same people I'm meeting, but every time they only come और कैसे है, अच्छा पहले से याद बट ठीक है, डाउन है. Are these people actually understanding the law? And all said and done, India is a great country, is a great nation. We will take over the world one day. I am a very firm believer that. Look at the Constitution of India. Look at the RPWD Act. One of the first country to ratify UNCRPD. But agar disabled people, they are not aware of this, their right and their law and Constitution. पहले समझिए आप. पहले taxation पहले समझिए. RPWD Act आ जाएगा आपको. So my thing is that if you don't know your right, if you don't read the law, it's a piece of paper. कोई आपके घर में आके पूछेगा नहीं आपको विकलांगता, लीजिए 1 लाख रुपए आपके लिए सरकार ने भेजा है. So I think, we may talk as much as we want, we do as much, but till the time, I think, I keep saying this again and again, that disabled people and their family members and their allies have to look at disabled people as a leader. They are not a beneficiary, they are not a number. कि कितने लोगों को मैंने job दे दिया. I mean, every day phone call आता है. We want to hire some people. अभी बॉम्बे से भी आया था. You want to hire some people in our bank. Can you send some people with mild disabilities? So we say we don't do that. That's not what our job. But the day you throw people out from your bank, we will come after you. So, we need to figure it out. I think, it's 1995 से अभी तक 30 साल हो गए ना. पहला कानून विकलांगता का आया, दूसरा कानून 2016 में. Where are we as a sector? Where are disabled people? Are we in the right track? Kanchan, yes.
Thank you, Arman. Thank you, Damini. I leave it to the audience. Any questions for both my speakers today? We've had a very interesting session, so yes, please. Yeah, sure. Please go ahead. Just introduce yourself and then start. Introduce yourself, that's it.
Hi, I'm Radhika. I'm a psychologist, and honestly this session has been enlightening for all of us, I believe, because we call ourselves educated, but I feel that in terms of law, definitely there are very few people who actually go through the laws, or even now we work in intellectual disability sector, but after a sensitization about child protection policy or policy regarding protection of or how to protect in people with intellectual disability and stand for them, or advocacy and all everything, I feel like there's a lot that we need to do, and the accountability also lies with us, because we every time call out that the system is not working, or we should approach the system, and things are not streamlining. There are lack of amendments that happen, but I feel somewhere if the implementation is not happening, and the follow-up is not happening in our system that we work, or our setup that we work, then probably we cannot have a full evidence in terms of taking it further, putting the onus on the system itself. I feel it lies with the people we work with, the team we work with, the organization we work with, the broader
So Radhika,
mesosystem.
what are you going to take over? What aspect are you
Firstly, I would start going through the laws again.
Okay.
Sharing it with my team members. I'll make sure that every month I discuss at least one law, the amendments that we need. I mean, I will start small.
See, amendment is one big thing, one big legislature thing. So
Yeah.
amendments is one thing, but see how you can implement what we already have.
Yeah.
Okay, because changing things is very easy. Change your clothes. But the dress that you want to make perfect, how do you make that perfect,
Yeah, definitely.
You
So I
wear
will,
it, you try it, you stand, you model before the mirror, you do lots of things to get that dress to be perfect, right? So do that first. Start with that, okay?
Yeah, definitely. I will take this and I will definitely first read and share and motivate others also to do in my sector.
Very
and
good.
I also definitely most of the points here are covered in terms of voting, in terms of standing up and the power of
Thank you,
visibility.
Radhika.
One more question, just a question that I have for joined with it. In terms of intellectual disability, I would like to hear views about are there any legislature or any kind of putting forth about views or the rights of intellectual disability specifically in the parliament, or if anything like that? So I just want to hear about that.
See, the RPWDA talks about all disabilities, intellectual disability being there. I think separately you could also look at the National Trust Act, though it uses an incorrect terminology now. But a lot of the schemes come from the National Trust Act originally and read with the RPWDA. But I want to understand your specific question. I thought ma'am could answer.
Okay, come. Let's go to the next question.
Sir, I want to ask you a question. The RT Act, it talks about inclusion. But in schools in Mumbai, they say that we will give you admission, but you should have a shadow teacher. And that shadow teacher should be a special educator. And when we tell parents, no, we are there with you, come. They say, no, abhi to bacche ko admission mila hai, usko nikal denge. So what do we do? How do we encourage them, or can we do something about this?
Who's asking you to get a shadow teacher?
All
government
schools,
school?
all schools, they have made it.
So you have to provide. And yeah.
The parent has to provide a shadow teacher.
So my simple question, how many FIR have you filed?
The parents are not coming forward.
I think yes. So the parents have to come forward, So you have to I'll take it very RT chhod dijiye aap, okay? The Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act is very clear that all education institutions which are recognized and funded by government, रिकग्नाइज का मतलब आपको समझ में आ गया ना? अब CBSE है, स्टेट बोर्ड है, ICSE है. If they recognize, they cannot, they have to provide inclusive education, including access plus reasonable accommodation. Reasonable accommodation means if you need any subject to be changed, if you need any assistive technology, if they're not doing it, then their recognition should not be recognized as a school for that matter. So this has to start somewhere. I think there's more awareness to be done. The onus is not on the parents. The onus is on the school, on the state. The state has to do it. Madam is saying no कि हमको खुद को देखना है. हम लोग तो सब patriot है. When there is a war tomorrow, all of us want to fight. That's the patriot. But tax किसको दे रहा है हम लोग? पैसा कौन ले रहा है? GST कौन ले रहा है? कहाँ जा रहा है? तो खर्चा कहाँ से होगा? Without budget, what can you do? I can give you 1 cup of tea for 3 days. 4th day I'll say, पानी से काम चलाओ. I think people need to understand this. People are so apologetic about disability. अभी पुणे से किसी ने फोन किया, सर मुझे कहीं पे ये नहीं मिल रहा, मैं M.Com किया, people not giving me internship, forget about jobs. Because I am person with disability, I have polio. You know what the girl told me? Sir, मेरे को पोलियो है लेकिन मैं चल लेती है. तो आप बोलो ना किसी को देगा इंटर्नशिप. आप बोलेगा क्या किसी को कि आई एम अ गर्ल बट यू ट्रीट मी लाइक अ मैन, बट यू टॉक टू मी. पीपल आर सो एपोलोजेटिक. सब नहीं, सब कुछ आता है मेरे को, थोड़ा पाँव में प्रॉब्लम है, थोड़ा हाथ छोटा है. When will this go away? Why are we not wearing our identity on our sleeves? बच्चे में प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, दुनिया में प्रॉब्लम है. ये बिल्डिंग किसने बनाया? भगवान ने बनाया क्या? इंसान ने बनाया. आपने क्यों नहीं सोचा कि यहाँ ऐसा डिसेबल्ड स्कूल किसने बनाया? सरकार. सरकार क्यों नहीं सोचता है कि स्कूल है और शिक्षा लेने तो डिसेबल्ड बच्चा भी आएगा? उसके लिए क्यों नहीं आप सोच रहे हैं? पैसा चाहिए तो और थोड़ा ले लो यार हमसे, पब्लिक का ये पैसा है ना. बट डोंट लीव डिसेबल्ड पीपल आउट. दिस नीड टू बी पॉइंटेड आउट, टॉक्ड अबाउट. पूरे देश में हर जगह 20 करोड़ से ज्यादा विकलांग लोग हैं हमारे देश में. थोड़े कि 20 लोग हैं यार. अब 20 लोग हैं तो उनको भी नहीं छोड़ना चाहिए, ये हमारा संविधान कहता है. तो इसमें डरने की बात नहीं है.
Yes, another question, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Shweta. I'm a special educator, and most of us we know most of the special schools have been started by advocacy by parents with children with disability, may it be Sopan or Adapt or Gateway School. Similarly, and I had no idea or any clue about the legalities and all that. So I'm glad that I attended this session. But I want to thank Arman sir, who said that people with disability have to take charge. So if you, sir, have any data point in terms of how many persons with disabilities are there in IS, like as in Indian Civil Services, or who are in the decision making cadre, and also are there any politicians as in who are persons with disability?
So I told you about Mr. Jaipal Reddy some years ago. He wouldn't accept that he was disabled. Okay, so now unless somebody is having an eye problem or a hearing problem, like Dr. Manmohan Singh came on a wheelchair into Parliament, into the new Parliament. Okay, so there's no way to, unless he's got a certificate. Okay, now as far as your IS goes, the last 4 years has been 4% reservation. So just think about how many posts are there. 4% तो कम से कम होगा with disability, and this has been going on. हाँ नहीं है. Okay, नहीं हाँ. Okay, he'll tell you the exact number. And then of course it's been going on for the last at least 15 years. So 3% तो है. So people are moving up. It's not that people are not there. People are at IIMs, at the CLAT, they're giving the CLAT exams and getting to the best law schools. They're getting to a lot of places now. Disability is moving. But are they going to accept disability? That's now, Arman will tell you more.
मैडम आप एक RTI फाइल कर दीजिए UPSC में ना, तो वो आपको पूरा डेटा दे देगा.
Thank you.